Hi kids, Just Be the Clown and comedy consultant justbetheclown.com. Justin B. Wright, the creator of Dance O Dance, which was a live, free, all ages, public access show of dance seen in Thurston County, Washington, and on the interwebs for part of its run, but originally from 1997 and concluding in 2021 with the Zoom version. I've been doing this series of videos about the origins of Dance O Dance and um, expressing gratitude, reminiscing, reflecting on people and opportunities, looking for that spark of insight and try to recapture the magic. And let's go 2023 is what I'm saying here. But we're going to do the Wayback Machine and talk about 1994. In this series, I talked about the Evergreen State College Infectious Waste Theater, cluster contract. I talked about Chaos Community Radio Station, mixtapes from partners, other dance forms, and then I ended on the cliffhanger of the day I first saw Butoh. So we're rejoining the story already in progress, and now it's a 420, April 20th, 1994, in Olympia, Washington, on the campus of the Evergreen State College in Red Square, by the clock tower, the lecture halls, the bus turnaround, the college activities building. Suddenly, there was a dancer. A man painted all white in a white flowing gown, moving almost not at all. And if I looked around, I could see other dancers in the distance, gradually approaching. But as I focused on this dancer, who I later learned was Eiji Masuda, I noticed him have what I can only be describing to you as an episode, a kind of fit, a kind of something of a catharsis and or epiphany, seizure of laughter and agony, uh, shaking and shuddering. And then it passed, and his face returned to neutral. And he calmly floated and rejoined the rest of the show, which I don't remember anything about. But I clearly remember wondering, how did they rehearse this? I mean, there was the scale, it was huge, and I lived nearby. I thought surely I would have noticed them out on Red Square. But how something like the sudden strangeness of emotion passing through, how could that be rehearsed? And um, so I really want to find this videotape, um, digitize it, share it, and rewatch it, and look at that moment again. I know it happened. I know that I had a camera. I sometimes had one. I might have been known ahead of time this was happening, but I know that I had a camera, and I know that I noticed someone else with the camera and went to them and said, can I have that tape? Can I borrow that? I need to watch this again, these two from different angles, and edit together into something more cohesive, some more coherent, something I can make sense of it, because it was so visually stunning, emotionally impactful, different from all the other dances I'd been used to, and I knew that I would enroll in the class at the next earliest opportunity. And so I went, and there was the teacher, the late Duran Crable, and in the small dance studio there was a video cart, and she turned off the lights, and we watched the documentary The Dance of Darkness, and I was hooked. There was this element of trance, and it left a room for improvisation. There was this strong commitment to performance. You wouldn't expect in the other dances that after only 10 weeks that you would then be performing an hour or more in the public. But that's what shortly happened. And there was this emphasis on partner work. But what is it? Okay, it's a postmodern Japanese dance style. It was started in the 60s by Tatsumi Hijikata and Kazuo Ono, and Duran had studied with Ono. and it was a response to the existential trauma, the horrors of World War II, um, and modern life. And so thematically it dealt with death and disease and decay and suffering and insanity and ugliness. And visually, so the dancers might have soft bodies with curved hands, and the eyes slightly unfocused and floating, and the mouth slightly open, and then and drool would spill out, and this cinched it. I could salivate copiously, and I had no qualms about drooling on myself and playing in drool with others. So, you bring a certain skill set to something. So, yes, audible breathing was a part of it. The sighing, groaning, and moaning, and odd noises, grimacing, and tongue work. Your whole body, you know, was involved. Things happened with their own time signatures, not like steady, even Tai Chi or slow motion, but it's tuned into your heartbeat and your breathing and ambient environment. There were times when we rushed around, like leaves in the wind, birds voluting. There were staccato moments. There could be times where we turned into hungry ghosts and pointed at the audience, broke the fourth wall, or angular, jagged, asymmetrical. There was a lot of ambiguity, though. And again, there was no letter grades, but Duran had to be the arbiter and would sometimes declare something not Butoh. Right? So we're not doing mime here. Okay. Uh, don't sneak in the modern dance there. Okay. So I and others had to sometimes rein it back in. And I understand the need for quality control, for maintaining the legacy, protecting the brand and such. But there was this vagueness. There's this emptiness and open, like an empty spot in an electron orbit where we'd want to throw our own form in, mesh styles. Once we thought we got it, we thought we could blend it into a Franken dance. A lot of brainstorming around Butoh swing, a Butoh tap, Butoh Irish dance, Butoh basketball. You just thought that okay, we just slow everything down, paint everybody white, and there'd be drooling, and the two things now are one new thing. But that's because this falls into this overly broad category of performance art and interpretive dance, which are very cringy terms, and I do not want to be associated with them. Okay, so otherwise, let's say Butoh looks a lot like a bunch of POWs or zombies. And granted, there is beauty and grace and meditative tableaus, but mainly overall, there's a lot of bizarre, freaky, grotesque eeriness going on, and a lot of people that brought up big feelings. Sometimes the big feelings of boredom. It was super slow. So, but sometimes feelings of disgust. You do these grotesque things, and people go, "Well, I don't want to watch that. It's gross." Or fear. They make like this. The crazies are coming. But so a lot of discomfort. It's supposed to be art. It's supposed to cause some discomfort and distress, I guess, be jarring and outrageous. Butoh has always resisted this classification and codification and formal structures of choreography when you think of that. So think about that too much, even for a minute, though. It can be unnerving to the performance and to the audience both. So, like our choreography was poetry, poetic imagery, phrases, uh, things that would elicit maybe a response and suggest a body parts doing such and such. A lady with the hair flowing, of course, is going to be different than this man who's a log on a beach or drawing down the moon and consuming it. You know, she talked in code and we had to figure it out and improvise a lot. We had music that could be blending, crossing genres, overlapping, layered, going from Eric Satie to Edith Piaf to Kyoto monks to whale songs to Ella Fitzgerald. You know, you'd run the whole thing that would give some direction, some momentum, some structure, a layer of meaning. You could imagine a narrative of the dancers based on what we've been trying to convey with our high art, as it were. Um, so there was this trance, and it was assumed from the first beat, and there was performances, hours and hours of them. I looked in my archives, and I was in like 32 pieces over 3 years. It seemed like we were always performing. And if you were an Olympian, you could have come to expect, seeing us out there in some public street or something. I need to talk more later about the specifics of a lot of different pieces that were strange and wonderful. But there was partner work, and this was the most exquisite novelty and so delicious to witness and to be part of. Um, Straight off. Um, After the documentary, the first activity with Dren would be get up and find a partner, and you go to your partner. And for me, as I've mentioned before, partner work wasn't my strength. It still isn't. This is sort of a rare instance of making an amazing bond in a special, unique way, I guess. Um, Go to your partner, go behind your partner, put your hands on their shoulders and press down and do some grounding for them. And then pull on imaginary strings out behind you and let those go. Press down on their skull. Pull an imaginary string up to the center of the universe, outer space there. Go down the back. You do this your whole body, your shoulder blades, and pressing down on your hips, and back of your knees, your calves and your heels, and then grounding down into the earth. And then you come around to the front. You press it down on the front, and you put your hands on their face, and very delicately trace over and pulling off their mask. Right? Okay, you're really releasing and revealing the dancer beneath this human thing that was going on, that was trying to be somebody, walking into class thinking they were somebody. All of a sudden, okay, now we're connected. You see me, I see you. And we would do the neck, the line, a string from your neck chakra, your throat, and your heart, and connecting with them down the front, down the hips, and to the front, and to the toes, and grounding them. And now this amazing thing. It's sort of personal encounter weekend exercise that may not be owned and affiliated with Butoh TM experience, but it was super profound and needed by me, and I think by others. It has stayed with me for these 25 plus years. I still feel connected to the friends and the lovers that I knew then. These people that were then dancers, that were then a troupe suddenly, um, spontaneously forming by just showing up to classes and then being in performances, and then there was a troupe. So I'm really curious how it affected the others, and I have been doing some outreach, some initiating conversations, and some delving into archives, and among many things, Butoh is this practice of patience and subtlety and attention to minute details. My relationship with Duran was fraught practically from the beginning because of my desire to videotape everything and her attitude toward documentation and in some part to promotion and marketing was that whoever shows up and sees it is who was meant to see it. And I thought, well, I never saw Nijinsky or Nureyev live. I was meant to see them by videotape. I never saw Gene Kelly or Fred Astaire live. Um, and if it hadn't been for the documentary that you showed us, maybe I never would have believed that this was a part of something bigger than just us making up stuff on the spot. So, gradually I kept at it. I had an academic component to my independent contract that included videotaping, and it was a mandate, and it was my body. I'm going to be in a show. I want to videotape it, and you guys are all in it too, so that's great. But I became like the archivist and was always videotaping. But she eventually acquiesced and sort of allowed, and helped facilitate sometimes some of these video projects. There's a few I'll mention in a moment. At times, though, I felt that she was blocking me, and ultimately dismissed me. And there's this broken part of me that mourns the split from the troupe. A previous to prior to their international performing journey to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival and all. But honestly, I had already discovered that for me, clown was a higher calling, and that's because there were these weird, surprising moments where the audience would laugh, and I would savor that. Right? We're being grotesque. This is part of the tradition of the grotesque and the bouffon and the weirdness of clown. That these two things were very, very similar. That's like a whole another talk, but it wasn't enough for me to perform an audience into stunned silence. If they were at this theatrical Butoh performance, sure, they would applaud at the end, but I certainly had this feeling that it was out of habit, that's kind of relief, and this ceremonial, but you got to break up the energy of the morbid introspection that they put you into. Okay, I like laughter and cheers and applause, and that's okay. Um, and I like fast dance with kicks and jumps and things like that, and that's okay. And so, I started this TV show, and I started a clown business, but that's the basic story of how I got drawn into Butoh. A big mystique and an opportunity to work with others intimately, over an extended period, over many different performances. I want to elaborate when I come back about some of those other performances that I was in, some that were videotaped, some that weren't, some that I might be able to share. But also, there's this similarity between Butoh and Pukulan, the Indonesian martial arts that I was studying, and that's worth talking about, having a little shared investigation, I guess. And, oh yeah, and of course the Just Be the Clown connection and the creation of Dance O Dance, the incorporation of Butoh into those early episodes. But for now, I want to draw your attention to a couple of videos on my channel already that Duran approved of. They're studio duets. There's one by Kelly and Andrew and one by Debbie and Sydney, and they're great examples of the form and show some really good drool work. I was very happy with making sure that the drool was lit properly and that we could get a sense of what this weird slow motion zombie drooly performance our interpretive dance was. And now you have a little bit more background and context about how when the people got together and collaborated, they were in on this secret, and that we loved springing it out onto the public unsuspectingly. All right, so that'll do it. That's 20 minutes. And thank you so much for your patience. Like and subscribe, comment on videos, share things, do what you got to do. I don't know. I'll be back again.